Good morning. This is your host, Michael J. Long, the 9th of February of 2020. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything the free market gives me, from my cell phones to laptops to desktops to computer sticks, TV, entertainment, tablets, you name it. Everything the free market has. Yes, and that's the thing. These people make a lot of money. Of course they do. But they give us whatever it is they invent in the long run. And no matter how poor or how rich we may be, if you walk the streets of just about any city, town, and village in this country or anywhere else in the world, you will find people on cell phones, whether it's an Android, um, an iPhone or whatever it is, or they'll have tablets or phablets, or, when they get home, they'll have their TVs or smart TVs or whatever. So technology has evolved over the years. And aside from that, yes, these people make a lot of money. It's true, they make an awful lot of money, but then we get something from it in return. And so no matter how poor or rich we may be, we still have products that, even though they've made a lot of money off of it, that we wouldn't have had if they hadn't invented it and sold it in the free market. And this is why capitalism is a very good thing. Because we, even though we may complain about capitalism and all that, we reap the benefits of it. And it's almost exponentially so that we've reached the benefit, we reap the benefits of it. I mean, and if you work, you make a lot of money, great. If you work and you don't make as much, maybe you need two jobs. Well, I mean, everybody's different, and but the thing of it is, the question is, and this is really what I want to get at here, is should the government then be subsidizing corporations in terms of corporate welfare, or should they even be involved in the affairs of the free market at all? Now, understandably, maybe certain industries like making cars, you might want to have some reasonable regulations, but the problem with this country is we have way too many rules and regulations. And first of all, I don't even understand how we can get away with having the executive branch with all these agencies make regulations when that's the very purpose of Congress, is to make law. They are the legislative branch of government. So if there does need to be regulations in certain industries, it needs to come from them. They need to make it a law for whatever regulations we might need, but I'm a firm believer that the less regulations you have and the less taxations you have, the better off you're going to be. Because now that's more money in your pocket that you can turn around and invest in, pay off your debt, whatever it is. And so, yeah, capitalism's a very good thing, but the problem isn't so much capitalism, as I stated before. It's corporatism and socialism, all the bad. I mean, and especially corporatism. And it seems to me that when you get a Republican president, you get corporatism and socialism in the mix. And then when you have a Democratic president, you still get corporatism and you get a lot more socialism with it. And I don't think socialism is. I mean, this idea of having a universal single payer healthcare system, you know, it's bad. I mean, in the sense that now everybody becomes dependent on the government. And then if you don't have private insurance in the mix and everything comes from the government, then it takes long. If you need like an operation or something, it takes longer. You have to register for the process and all this and that and the other thing. But I guess what I really want to get at is libertarianism, and that's probably the best way to go. Um, so, ex- what exactly is it that we believe that is, that being libertarians, they're very different from the conservative liberal spectrum, or even conservative liberal moderate spectrum? Well, I can assure you, for one thing, I always summarize it like this: libertarians believe in freedom in both personal and economic matters. In economic matters, in the sense that we believe and support capitalism. We believe and support in allowing the free market to work itself out and to self-regulate itself out as much as possible, and be able to freely associate with whoever it is they choose to associate with. And on top of that, letting people decide for themselves in social matters what they choose to put in their own bodies, how they choose to live their lives, how they choose to spend their money, how they choose to raise their children, and so on and so forth, as long as they do not impose danger, force, or fraud to others. And I think that's key there. I consider myself to be a minarchist libertarian. There is a role for government, but that role has been overexpanded over the years, exponentially so. And so, what I'd like to see happen is that we have a lot of government agencies we don't need, that we're spending a lot of money on. And on top of that, we have a very aggressive warfare type of system that, benefits the military industrial complex. And what do I mean by that? I mean all the wars that we've been in, the bombings of other countries, which we libertarians object to, the, you know, the invasion and occupation of various countries in the Middle East, and supporting certain tribes over others. There's all this constant meddling, which I can't relate to under any circumstances whatsoever. I think it's appalling. Uh, I think it's time we send the troops home. I think it's time we bring them home from all over the world, from the Middle East, Europe, Asia, from all over the world. Just shut down all of our foreign military bases, bring the troops home, and then reduce the military and keep them on a defensive role instead of being all over the place. Um, and then the other thing is, let's actually reduce the size of the government, the size and the power of the federal government, and encourage the local, state, and county governments to do the same thing. And then let's work to see what we can do to get rid of every single federal government agency, with the exception of Medicaid, Medicare, uh, CHIPS, Social Security. But then let's also have a transition plan, let the free market compete with them. Uh, and then let's abolish the income tax and replace it with the fair tax, or have some type of appropriate tax reform where the overall rate of taxation is reduced, so that you can earn more of what you've made at work or whatever. So these are various different solutions that I support. And the reason I call myself a minarchist is because, I believe there is a role for the federal government, for the local, state, and county governments, and for people to govern themselves. There is a role for that, but that role, like I said, has been overexpanded. And I believe I believe the federal government should have minimum functionality, in terms of what it produces, all that. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea we retain Medicaid, Medicare, CHIPS, and Social Security for the short period but let's make cuts to them. Take people who don't need to be on it off them and let them work and make their own money. And let the free market prosper. And let them determine the best sources of energy. And I think one source of energy they're going with is nuclear energy. But again, let them come up with the best source of energy. Let's get the government out of the way as much as possible and allow the free market to work itself out. Let's have comprehensive immigration reform where we can work on providing a pathway to legal residency to everyone who comes into the country that isn't a criminal threat to the public, or that won't impose danger, force, or fraud to others, and give them a pathway to legal residency. And then if they want citizenship, they just take the exam and go through the process like everyone else. So yeah, give the illegal immigrants a pathway to legal residence, and for the ones that have, let's streamline the immigration system. Let's build more port of entries, and so we can control. If we do that, I think we can control the amount of people that come in illegally. And we can give them a pathway to legal residency, and all the bad ones, we can have them prosecuted under the fullest extent of the law, give them a fair, speedy trial, and then have them deported if they've raped, murdered, or have done anything to impose danger, force, or fraud to others. And that should be the key. I'm also in support, and I think, and like I said, I'm also in support of marriage equality, marijuana legalization. Let's work on legalizing or decriminalizing all the drugs, legalize them if possible, and then let's see if we can come up with, reasonable regulations through Congress if we need to. But I think the ultimate goal is, what can we do to reduce the power and the size of the federal government, the local, state, and what can we do to encourage the local, state, and county governments to do very much the same thing? Why don't we, for instance, tax reform? And then here's the other thing. We need campaign finance reform, and to make it fairer for third parties and independents to get elected, or to have the possibility as such, so that they can so that we all can compete with the Democrats and Republicans with, in a fair manner in the elections that come about. So with that said, I think there's an awful lot President Trump can do that he hasn't. And I know I've heard conservatives say, oh, well, it's because the Democrats are fighting him, or, and he can't get anything done. But believe me, he can get whatever it is he wants accomplished, especially when it comes to growing the size of the federal government and the military-industrial complex. I mean, look, he made it happen that he got Congress to to pass a law to create a space force. He made that happen with very minimum opposition from the left, even though the Democrats hold a majority in the House. So it's not because the Democrats are fighting him. It's because his priorities are more about expanding the size of the federal government. And yes, he has cut taxes, but he's also increased spending, and he's also increased monetary funding for the economy. Libertarians like myself overall, even if you're an anarcho-capitalist and don't believe in having the federal government, also support the abolishment of the Federal Reserves. But I just think that all of what I'm stating is just food for thought. And if you like what you hear, you can hit the notification bell and hit subscribe. And that way, whenever I make a new video, you'll be up to date on it. You'll get notified. I'm Michael J. And please, it's really, I mean, can't say it's important, but it would help if you did subscribe. And I'm Michael J. Long, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.